Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram Om. 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 Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Hari Om to everybody. Yesterday we were prompted to take up this Sthita Prajna. Arjuna asked, Sthita Prajnasya ka bhasha? O Keshava, is the description of a person, what is the description of a person of steady wisdom, merged in samadhi? How does the person of steady wisdom speak? How he sits? How he walks? So then Lord answered, Prajahadi yada kaman sarvan partha manogadan atmanyev atmana tushtaha sthita prajnasta uchyate. One completely casts away, O Partha, all the desires of the mind, satisfied in the self, by the self, then he or she is said to be one of steady wisdom. That person is a Sthita Prajna. In that condition, what is that condition? When she or she has overcome all the desires of the heart, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. When the mind and the heart cease to hanker after this and that, a stage will come in life when a person realizes that these petty desires are nothing compared to his or her own true nature, of the infinite and ever-free Atman. Why should I identify myself with them? We thus overcome desires by intelligent understanding that nothing can equal in value my own infinite self. We thus overcome desires by intelligent understanding that nothing can equal in value my own infinite self, neither 5 rupees nor a million rupees, nor any other big gift from outside. How can they compare with the infinite value of the self, which is my true nature? When Papa was in, we have shared many a time, but again and again we are reminded, no? Papa was in Kasaragod ashram. He was not set up by him. As he was wandering, his brother thought, he should stay in one place. They put up a small kutia there. Papa was asked to go there. Food was sent to him. He was carrying on with his sadhana, with his own routine. He has not touched money. I think probably from 22 December, yeah. From that moment, he has not touched money probably. So somebody sent an MO there. At least basic things, something they may require. The MO was sent back. We thus overcome disease by intelligent understanding that nothing can equal in value my own infinite self, neither 5 rupees, nor a million rupees, nor any other big gift from outside. How can they compare with the infinite value of the self, which is my true nature? This knowledge comes after a long struggle of inward penetration. Because to know that He is there, to feel His presence, then only the contentment comes. When He is all full, and He is the controller of the whole universe, we all know it because Mahatmas say that we read it, that's all. All full, When we feel His presence, who is Purna, then where is the need for buying anything? So this knowledge comes after a long struggle of inward penetration. As a child, I want this, I want that. A child cannot understand its own true nature. So always it wants something to eat, something to buy, something to play with. Always out, the child mind goes. But when the mature mind comes, it realizes that these things are nothing compared to one's own true nature. Contentment. Self-contented and self-contained, this is contentment. Probably in many of our case, we may not need anything from outside, but we don't want to part with what we have. That detachment probably is not. Trust in God only will give. We may not require anything. Our requirement probably would have been, by God's grace, we would have reduced to the minimum, barest minimum. That is not enough. This is a tremendous life achievement. Today, however, many people do not have that idea that the Atman within me, my own infinite dimension, is far superior to all petty things of the external world. We may have faith in God, everything will be there, but contentment. Under some pretext, the mind will bring some story, some argument, some logic, that this is a necessity. You have to be alert. Somebody comes and gives. Immediately, okay, you don't offend their sentiments, but you don't own it, Not only owning it, but possessing it. Pass it on. Pass it on to the one who is in need of it. Something on which you had always seriously think. We all would like to lead a Siddharthajna life, man of steady wisdom. First sloka itself says is important. Feeling contented with what we have. But when the mature mind comes, it realizes that these things are nothing compared to one's own true nature. That is a tremendous life achievement. Today, however, many people do not have that idea that the Atman within me, my own infinite dimension, is far, far superior to all petty things of external world. External world means lust and gold, name, fame, power, position, all these things. Recognition, appreciation. We seek in the external world impelled by desire. And desire is the movement of the mind out. What is desire? Desire is the movement of the mind out. An object is there, we crave for it. And desire is the movement of the mind out. I am not satisfied within me. I want something from the outer world. That is how desire operates. But by discrimination, by the practice of yoga, step by step, we come to a stage which is described here. When all the kamas or desires of the heart are thrown away, that is one statement. Shankaracharya tells us in this commentary that alone cannot make you a Sthita Prajna. I don't desire anything. It can be a pathological state. So the first line is not enough. Shankara is going to say that something greater is to be added, and that is what is in the second line. Atmanye Vatmana Tushtaha. He or she is fully delighted in the self, by the self. Because of that, I don't want anything. I am full. That is the nature of true and positive renunciation. I have got something infinite with me. What can these petty things do for me? They are all tinsel without any value, like children running after toys, bubbles, etc. I am not a child. I don't want these things. We say when we are grown up. Similarly, the highest maturity of the human mind is that it is not dragged away by desirable objects from outside. Desirable objects. Not by any effort, but by an effortless, spontaneous process arising from one's knowledge of one's own infinite nature. Not out of it is an indifference, not out of positive indifference. I am the infinite Atman. What can these things do to me? That is renunciation, natural, spontaneous. If we can ponder over this, that itself is sufficient to become a Sthita Prajna. We know which are the areas to improve. Because the mind will be bringing up a lot of arguments. So lust and gold, name, fame, power, position, possession, appreciation, recognition, craving to make. I once read a story of a Catholic Christian saint of the very early centuries. The saint had a friend in magistrate. The magistrate was telling another friend, before I die, I want to give all my property to this saint, my friend. And that man reported it to the saint. Then the saint asked, what did he say? Before I die, I want to give all property to that saint. Did he say that? Yes, sir. Does he not know that I have already died earlier than himself? What a beautiful expression. I am already dead to all these things. I don't need any one of these. No, that's a natural state. There is no need to prod a man to develop that feeling. Because he has achieved something greater, namely love of God, bhakti. What worldly things can compare with that wealth that comes to you through bhakti? Love of God. Therefore, the second line of the verse says, Atmanyev Atmana Tushtaha. Oneself is satisfied with one's own infinite Atman. Then only Chita Prajna Tada Uchate. One can say to be a spirit. My heart is not empty. First I emptied it of all these finite external desires. But I did not leave it empty. I filled it with the infinite Atman. Then no more desires can come. This has been expounded in various ways in the Upanishads. Aptakama, Atmakama, Akama. Three statements. First is called Aptakama. All desires have become fulfilled, fully justified. How? Atmakama. When you realize the Atman only. Then that state can come. And in that state you become also Akama, desireless. This is achieved by every human being by proper discrimination, by realizing one's own true nature as infinite, immortal, divine. I am not this tiny body-mind complex. I am not a tiny creature. Even in the limited levels of life, this kind of thinking is very, very effective. So to reduce our desires, we keep on thinking. Though it may not be nil, by constantly hammering that I am full, I am full, I am full. That is why, the Shanti mantras in Upanishad, all slogas, that is, correct, that deals with Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamaruchyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We have heard it, we have repeated it. We like to hear it. We like to recite it. This is how it is slowly injected into our mind. Purna, I am Purnam. And even if something is taken out, still it is Purnam. $50 or $60 or $70 or $80 years back, our Indian population was somewhere near 30 crores. Now it is 135 to 140 crores. Have we imported as a nation air and space from anybody? Just think. It gives us some idea about fullness, So never it is, whether it is 30 crores or 135 crores, it is always full. Space, always full. Whether there are 50,000 population, 50,000 houses, whether there are about crores of houses, space is still there, untouched, unaffected, undiminished, unaltered, unaffected. So these are all something which nature teaches us, What is fullness? This hall can arrogate that this is Satsang Hall with a name, with a label, with all the creature comforts like benches, fan, light, this, that. But all the time, it is there in the overall space only. And just because this has been constructed, faith is not affected. Tomorrow, God forbid, if this is demolished, the roof and the side wall, nothing is affected to the faith. It remains. So what is fullness, we try to understand. Externally also we can feel that fullness. Everything is full. And individually I feel I am not full. I am incomplete. The inadequacy, the incompleteness, the insufficiency, all these things are, making me to crave for this, that, and make me not only miserable, with that I make others also miserable. So, first Shravaka of the Siddha Prajna, the Lord answered something full of food for thought, full of it enables us to look at ourselves, look at the Mother Nature, try to hammer this out. When am I going to reach the stage where I feel full? I am that. I don't need them. That attitude will come. You don't try to drive them away. I don't need them. I am full. What a wonderful life. This is the teaching that makes for Sthita Prajna. Steady wisdom. Even if you get 5% of the steadiness, something for all of us to console ourselves. Even if you get 5% of the steadiness, even that will make your life and work very, very rich and joyous. We don't expect millions of people to become fully Sthita Prajnas of this nature. But here is the idea towards which we all can move. If one takes one step, that is a blessing. If one takes more steps, all the better. That is how these Vradas came. Vows. Self-denial. Tapering. Straightaway we cannot do it, but tapering. Consciously denying something for ourselves, and gradually it becomes a natural phenomenon. We are in the middle of a race between, Bertrand Russell says, a great thinker. He is agnostic, no doubt. See what he says. We are in the middle of a race between human knowledge as to means and human folly as to its end. Unless men increase in wisdom as much as in knowledge, increase of knowledge will be increase of sorrow. Increase in wisdom as much as in knowledge, not merely this textual, academic, intellectual knowledge. Wisdom. That is the goal of human evolution. The human being is greater than his or her possession. This is the truth which sometimes is driven home to us in crisis of life. This is another important point. Human being is greater than his or her possession. When we are children, we fight for the possession. We cry. Possessiveness is there. But if we are mature enough. And I saw this truth revealed during the Burma. We were telling people were coming. Finally, they had to leave one by one. Everything they were carrying on their head. And only the person reached India. So in a crisis period, you realize that the ultimate value is the person alone. And not what he or she possesses. I have seen this possession lying on the road. You are saying. They knew that they could again gain this possession if they were alive. Many of our devotees, who came from Sindh immediately after the partition, with nothing, zero. one group came straight to Raipur. He passed away. So he used to tell us, this came nothing. Then he started doing, some small little business. One or two shirts he buys and sells and things like that. Then slowly started building up. And the entire brother group of family members. And they are all now highly well off. But if we remember that, they came and then started. When he says, I am there, that is enough, I can again build up. I have seen this possession. They knew that they could again gain this possession if they were alive. How many of us fall down with a desire wind blowing on us? But if we are well rooted, then nothing can blow us away. That rooting is the Atman. My life is rooted in my awareness of the Atman. Then nothing can shake. This is very similar to the famous parable of Jesus in the New Testament. A foolish man built his house on sand, and the rain descended, floods came, the winds blew, beat upon the house, it fell, great was its fall. But a wise man built his house on rock. Rain descended, floods came, winds blew, beat upon the house, but it fell not, because it was founded on a rock. A very beautiful parable. When you raise your whole life on this rock of the Atman, nothing can shake it. That is called a steady character. Like a person who has high character strength arising from spiritual awareness, if somebody comes to bribe him, with 100,000 rupees, he will say to him, please go away. Where from does that strength come? Only from the spiritual dimension of the human being. He or she has founded one's personality on the rock of one's infinite nature. If he or she had founded it only on the sand, a little breeze of 5 rupees bribery would have made him or her fall down. That steady state will come when these Gita ideas are understood by the people. They are meant to be lived by the people so that they can become men in the true sense of the term. Otherwise, they are not human beings. Because they have not utilized the greatest gift faculty called the intellect. Intellect has been given to us to discriminate between what is real and what is not real. So that they can become men in the true sense of the term and not creatures, Otherwise they are called creatures, which can be thrown off their balance by some external force. So, Atmanyeva Atmana Tushtaha. When one becomes delighted in the Atman alone, then is one known to be possessive of steady will. Those who become ascetics, if they continue to be cheerful, then that asceticism is correct asceticism. Ascetics who are cheerful, who have got compassion, who love people, their asceticism is absolutely normal and high level. But suppose he is dry, who reacts to other people in a very bad way, there is something wrong with that asceticism. He has lost something precious, the joy of the Atman. Joyous asceticism is the most beautiful thing a human being can ever have. Where from has this smile come? From some infinite divine nature within and not from outside. This has been expressed in a great verse in Adi Shankara's Viveka Chudamani. Nirdanopi sada tushtopiya asahayo mahavalaha nitya triptopya bhujanga asamaha samadarshana. That person is an ordinary person who, though he or she has no wealth, no power, no resources, is yet full of joy, full of cheer. Though he or she has no helpers, is infinitely strong, ever satisfied, though not experiencing sense pleasures. Though he or she is incomparable, looks upon all as others equal. Asamaha Samadarshana. Nirdanopi Sadat. Asamaha Samadarshana. He or she is Asamaha, like Mount Everest. No other peak can be equal to that. But yet, he or she treats all as one equal. In our life, we see one person in the political field who approaches the ideal depicted in this particular sloka of Shankaracharya. That was Mahatma Gandhi. This kind of greatness is called spiritual greatness. Ordinary greatness cannot produce this quality. So Ramakrishna says, Shiva dances with joy, realizing his own infinite nature. This is the possibility hidden in all of us. We are not an item. An item to the world. We are not an item. A table or chair or a property or this or that cannot be equated with our true nature. When we realize this truth a little, we shall still have property, we shall still have money, but we won't be slaves of these. That is the trust placed in the Gita. Life will continue as it is, but value system will be different. I won't cheat a man for the sake of a few rupees. I know the value of money, but I know that the value of man is greater than the value of money. In this way, it can change human life from top to bottom. After all, a little change in our attitude, and life can make for more and more happiness. Say in our families, there is often so much of fight and quarrel for a little money. It's a terrible situation. Brothers, sisters, all fighting and quarreling. That whole picture will change with a bit of this message influencing the mind. Our people must learn to think and feel for things and persons in a big way. A sister has become a widow. They are there to help and serve her in her unhappy situation, not to swindle her. That kind of pettiness will never afflict a society when a little bit of spirituality, a little Sthidaprajna attitude comes to the human mind. So the first verse of Sthidaprajna section is the most promising verse. That you give up external attractions in a natural way. Because you realize something greater within yourself. A small thing is given up because a big thing has come to you. A small thing is given up because a big thing has come to you. You have realized your own bigness as a finite being underwritten by the infinite being within you. That knowledge, even a little, can destroy all the pettiness in social life, which is afflicting our society just now. It has relevance to all of us in every level of life, because this Atman, infinite, immortal, is our birthright, and we have to become aware of it. A small thing is given up because a big thing has come to you. You have realized your own bigness. Nothing can entice you. Nothing can attract you. That knowledge, even a little, can destroy all the pettiness in social life which is afflicting our society just now. It has relevance to all of us in every level of life, because this Atman, infinite and immortal, is our birthright, and we have to become aware of it. During Gandhiji's time, these verses used to be read in his ashrama every day, because it is so elevating. Even to think of it, even to meditate upon these ideas is a great education in human development, human spiritual growth. For success in life, we need a bit of steadiness of mind. An unsteady mind cannot achieve anything great. Most people have a measure of steadiness. That shows they have given some training to the mind. That training is elaborated here with a lot of insight so that you can achieve greater and greater stability in your inner life. So the second verse on the subject follows immediately, verse 56. The first itself is full of food for thought. Now we all know that Bhagavad Gita is not something somebody has told to somebody many years ago. It is directly addressed to us. It is directly connected with the workaday life. It is addressed to the man on the field. So he made Arjuna to ask this question, and Lord, he answered this. So that all of us, now that's why, thousands and thousands of years now, it is still there because it is connected with the reality, connected with the daily life. We see many people highly contented. They will not crave for anything that is others. At one stage. Then another one is that they are not after name, fame, power, position. If something is offered, okay. If they are recognized, okay. If they are not recognized, that is also okay. We rise to a higher level, spontaneous, so that we don't see all this pettiness. That is the spontaneous, natural evolution. We don't blame anybody. Even if somebody misunderstands us, we don't blame. Even if somebody says something, it's always they have seen some part of our life, or because of some confusion, because of my way of living, because of the words I use or the body language I use, they would have got that impression. Later on, we will go and tell them, I did not mean anything like that. But the whole thing is finished, Otherwise, it keeps on drilling. That is what Papa probably meant when he said the idea of the ashram is universal love and service based upon the vision of divinity in everybody, and it also provides for developing mutual love and service, so that what is realized within its world because it will, whatever we learn here, when we go out, we will be able to handle everything. It's a broader sense. If we don't understand that, our living in ashram will not become beneficial. That is the purpose for which immediately you lose your temper, you justify, you are right, others are wrong. Then so the first stanza itself is steady, the man of steady wisdom. This is called man of steady wisdom. He is not carried away because somebody says something. He is steady. Because he is connecting himself to the core of his being, Atman. So these are all petty things, We can see this in the life of ordinary people. Mahatmas, they have got plenty. We normally quote Mahatma's life. Then we think only when we become a Mahatma we can do that. For example, Ramana Bhagavan says, somebody from Kerala, they wrote a biography and he sent it to Bhagavan for his approval. In that biographical sketch he has written, he was a family man and he had this and that. So many things. Excepting the punctuation, Bhagavan did not alter anything and gave it to the office to send it to him. Luckily that person knew Malayalam, so he went through. And in Tamil he said, Shutta Poya Edrikale. So Bhagavan immediately said, Kandradalla Meyo. That stage. So he was able to write, he was not, it's all right. He felt it like that. It is not worldly wise, but it is spiritually wise. There are many people, we have seen, they are not affected by this. Because they are not running after name, fame, power, position, recognition, appreciation, all these things are not there in them. They want to reduce themselves to zero, that's all.
Why not common? Why not common?
Plenty of people are there. We have shared this in the satsang. Dr. Sadhdev is from Nagpur. He hails from a middle income group. We can understand how much the parents would have struggled hard to put him in the medical college. He had just completed the MBBS and had completed the house surgery. Okay, that is one part. A group of friends in Wayanad decided to reach out to the tribals. Tribals, when they are sick, they don't go out. They have their own way of handling everything. Ultimately, they all become emaciated. So one group of people thought that unless and until we reach out, they will not come. They cannot become one with the mainstream of life. So sometime in 77, 75, 76 period, they formed a small movement called Vivekananda Medical Mission. Swami Vivekananda Medical Mission. Many of their friends start collecting sample medicines from different doctors in different places, and that will be sent to these people. Okay, now go to the doctor. So they used to go to Calicut Medical College, so that when the first batch comes out, they would not have got replacement. If there is a gap of 1 or 2 or 3 months, they request them, why don't you please come, offer your services. We can't give you any salary. So they come. And by the time, they get settled, they get a placement, then they will go away. Again, these people will start searching for another doctor. Like that it was going on, and slowly the awareness, was getting spread in the tribal colonies. So they started responding. Finally, these people went to Nagpur, RSS headquarters, Sarsan Chalak, placed before him. He immediately located this person, called him, and told him, are you prepared to offer your service? Yes. There won't be any salary. You will have to go to an area in Wayanad, hill station. That language you may not know. You will have to cook. You will have to go to the tribal colony. This young man of 23, 24 years, just imagine. He volunteered, he came there. We all had the privilege of associating with him right from the moment he stepped in. Very young. At that time we were working with Jain. We also had a lot of charitable activities. So we used, they were given a place. So we have to park the motorbike and then walk. Mud, knee-deep mud will be there. We can't take the bike. So we have to walk nearly a kilometer and go to this doctor's place. And we give our love offering to him and come back. We had a charitable trust. And we used to see he will be sleeping somewhere. And a stove has been given, a few utensils. Then he will prepare something, chapati, sabji, kanji, something like that. Contented. When you read this, Atmanyev Atmana Tushtaha, we remember it. No grumbling, no complaints, no regrets. Young man, mind you. And then another person who was also leading almost like a renunciate. He was working in government, education department in Kerala. He is called Karunakaran. We call Karunakaran, we call him Karunakaran. He had just retired. These organizers somehow, they were blessed to identify this person. They went and pleaded, don't go anywhere, please come to Wayanad. Somebody is needed for the doctor. No? He is also a bachelor. So after the retirement, our Padmanabhan Swamiji, they all worked together. And both of them started. Initially people did not respond, we did not care to know. But later on, because of their dedication, selflessness, they used to go, they have to meet with all their requirements only from love offerings. They don't ask anybody. We still remember the days when Karunakaran will go and just sit, that's all. He will not give his receipt book. Immediately people will know from medical mission. Whatever is possible they will give and drop him at the next wherever he wants. Because he does not wear even a chappal. And this doctor takes care of the medical section. Karunakaran takes care of finance, accounts, and getting the samples. Like that, drop by drop, brick by brick they built up. And then people started knowing about him. And then everybody came forward one by one. Now it's a beautiful, big hospital. Previously, tribes are still free. Tribes, no. Others, 25 paise or 1 rupee they were charging, non-tribes. Ashram has been in touch with them right from 90s. When Pujya Swamiji came to Wayanad, he was taken there also. So we all have our association with them from 70s onwards. And this doctor, when he completed his 25 years of his dedication, all friends in Wayanad, they said, something should be done to remember this occasion. So finally they all went. And he said, no celebration, but on that protest you can, if you feel like, you can give something to the hospital. So immediately angiogram, something, machinery there. Ashram also joined. ECG machine equipment. And like that they built up one by one. That's a beautiful. Even today, whenever we happen to go to Wayanad, nowadays we don't get time. We used to at least spend about 5 minutes or 10 minutes with him. One more thing. So when his marriage was fixed, we all went to Nagpur. Because this is what at least we can show for all that he does. Then only we came to know all these things. We went to his house also. A middle class man. Why remember the steadiness in life? They are not after, what are those things? Name, fame, power, position, gold. Because they are contented in themselves. They don't feel the incompleteness, inadequacy, insufficiency. Atmanyev atmana tushtaha. Lust, gold, name, fame, power, position, appreciation, recognition, all these we seek in the external world impelled by desire. So the first sloka elaborately teaches enough food for thought. For success in life, we need a bit of steadiness of mind. An unsteady mind cannot achieve anything great. Most people have a measure of steadiness. That shows they have given some training to the mind. That training is elaborated here with a lot of insight so that you can achieve greater and greater stability in your inner life. So that is how he closes explanation on the first sloka of the syllabus. We will read the next one, and we don't have time, that we will take tomorrow. Dukkeshu anudvignamanat, sukeshu vikataspriha, vitaraga bayakrodaha, stithadhir muniruchate. One whose mind is not shaken by adversity, one who does not hanker after happiness, who has become free from blind attachment, fear and anger, is indeed a muni or a sage of steady wisdom. That stithadhi, that person whose dhi or buddhi is stita, steady, is called a muni. The word muni in Sanskrit correctly means mananashilo muni, a very thoughtful person. Normally we associate the word muni with one who observes silence, mauni, That is only a very external part of the wonderful term. The essential part is being deeply thoughtful. The word muni and rishi are often used in our literature. Muni is a great word. Look at a muni's face, you will find a thoughtful face. Not a light-hearted one, nor an empty, shallow kind of face. We are having democracy today. The success of a democracy depends upon more and more people developing the capacity of thought and for love and for service. Those who live in uncontrolled emotion and frenzy of action, which now characterize most of our politics, they can destroy our democracy. But in a very stable democracy, we need more and more of the muni quality in human beings. Mananashilo muni. Thinking people are muni. All progress in society comes from the capacity to think. Nothing at the surface level. Everything at the deep level. When we use the word muni in this context, we may feel, oh, it's a high ideal. How can we be munis like that? But we can be munis at our own level. There are so many levels of being a muni. So that is the line we must always remember. Dukkeshu anudvigavana, whose mind is not depressed by sorrow. Similarly, sukheshu vikataspriha, not carried away by ambition in happiness. Then comes a beautiful expression, vitaraga bayakrodaha, who has overcome three emotions which are very, very harmful to man. What are they? Raga, baya and krodha. Attachment, fear and anger. These three, beyond a certain range, are highly destructive of happiness and peace in a society. So this is expressed again and again in the Gita. When we deal with the fourth chapter, we shall be coming across this teaching more explicitly. Now fear is considered to be an evil throughout Vedanta. It never encourages fear as a religious virtue. That is the one lesson our society must learn. We train our children by instilling fear in them. Fear of this, fear of that. Vedanta says no. Let children grow in fearlessness. Fearlessness is a virtue. Fear is a sin. One of our friends, in Wayanad again, he was put in a hostel. His house is nearby. He is an estate owner. But he put him in a hostel. From there he has to walk to the school, 2.5 kilometers. Unlike today, many of the areas are estates, not streets. So one day this boy came to the house. It was about straight from the school, 5 o'clock. Immediately the father asked, did you inform the warden that you are coming? No. Go now. The boy had no. After he was sent, we asked him, what are you doing? He said, small boy. First of all, discipline, then only he will know what is fearlessness. Because from there, another 2.5 to 3 kilometers he has to walk. And by the time he reaches the hostel, it will be dark. Okay? And he has to walk alone. It looked like, a cruel or harsh treatment. But when we read this, we understand. Father is no more. The son is reached the maturity. So let children grow in fearlessness. Fearlessness is virtue. Swami Vivekananda, this is the Vedantic teaching. Bhaya or fear has no place in the moral education of any child. Normal fears are there. If there is a tiger, I am not going to embrace the tiger. That is intelligent, rational fear. But irrational fear, making for abnormality of behavior, has to be avoided. You all remember, Gandhiji teaching Abba. When Gandhiji and Abba, they were going, Manu, yeah. They were going from place to place in Naukali area, the present Bangladesh. During the partition moment, there were riots. So, Mountbatten said, one-man army only Gandhiji can quell this. Western side, military, everything is going on. Eastern side, no. So Gandhiji said, you should leave me alone. Nobody should accompany me. And he went, as usual, Manuji was there. So, he was having a stone, probably many of you might know, might not know. There is a soap tree, soap. There is there in the ashram. Soap nut. So that is the one which is used on those days. For that they need something, so he has got a small piece of stone. So when they reached a place about 10 miles, 16 kilometers away from the morning they have walked. Suddenly Manuji remembered they have forgotten to take this. When it was reported to Gandhiji, he coolly said, go and get it. 18-year-old girl, not humanly inhabited place. She has to walk. And he said, anybody is coming, no, you will go alone and come back. Later on she has returned. Why Bapu is so harsh? Then she said she went and came back before night and then handed over. Then she said, now only I came to know the power of Rama. She got over the fear because a field was given where she could rely on God through Ramnam. And then that was the biggest lesson. It is not a satsang like this, under a comfortable position. You are protected here, It is down to earth experience. And that will get stamped in their heart. So whenever we are thrown to a field, then only we will know, Swami Chidanji Maharaj says, daily sadhana and daily life. Daily life offers us opportunities to put the daily sadhana into test. We don't have to go out. Every day God is testing us. We have to find whether our sadhana is helping me or not. I am coming down to the individual level and reacting, or I am going at a higher level and not reacting. So, Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha. Fearlessness is a virtue. In no other literature do we find fear being considered as bad for a human being. Fearlessness alone is virtue. Not fear. I speak a lie. Why? I fear, therefore I lie. I have no fear. I shall never speak a lie. I will speak the truth to father and mother. So children brought up in fearlessness, they will naturally be moral. They will be straightforward. They will be spontaneous in their life. Never instill fear into the minds of children. We remember one more incident in Gandhiji's life. He had all the cravings, when he was young, the study. So, he had given way to it. One day he realized what all this. And his father was leading a very value-based life, honest, straightforward, true to everything, and rooted in devotion to God. So how will I face him? What I have done is deplorable. So he wrote everything, what all he committed so far. And then went. Father was sick. He was in bed. And that is why he said, I must confess. So he went there and gave. Father went through the whole. Tears were coming. On that day, Gandhiji has returned. Father did not say anything, to wound his feelings. By his tears, he cleansed off my mind of all dirt. By his going through, he washed my heart and cleansed off all my dirt in my. From that day onwards, we are fine. He was so very fearless. Many instances, anecdotes are there in his life. When we go through that, we find. The children brought up in fearlessness, they will naturally be moral. They will be straightforward. They will be spontaneous in their nature. Never instill fear into the minds of children. As grown up also, we have to try to overcome. This is the running theme in this great book, Bhagavad Gita. To overcome attachment, raga, bhaya, fear and krodha. So, another one is, all of us are subject to anger. We will take it up tomorrow. The strong message is that at whatever level we are, whether leading a professional life or a family life or a social life or a personal life or a labeled spiritual life, what is needed is contentment, self-contented. And I must have a mind of steady wisdom. It should not be oscillating. All my spiritual disciplines, all my value-based life should enable me to stand firm. At the moment we are not firm, we are giving in. So we pray to him now. You have made us aware of the need to have a steady wisdom, so that I will be able to meet every challenge, every duty, every commitment with boldness. Because it is God ordained. And why should I fear? My faith in him becomes more and more concretized. And to become more and more firm, we try to bring in the life and experience of people with whom God has made us to come in contact with. Not necessarily the labeled Mahatma. Easily Mahatma. And then too we think about, this person, he did not react. He was not carried away. He did not get offended. Then we find so many people whom God has made us to get in touch with has expressed this virtue. So let us all try to make the best of it, and we pray to him to give us more and more strength and courage to bear every ordeal bravely. With this as the background. Not because we are self-assertive or adventurous, no. Because of our subservience to God, we develop this fearlessness. We develop this boldness to brave all dangers. So let us all pray for that. Hari Om. Om Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Om Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Om
Jai Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai
Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Om Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Om Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Om Shri Ram, Jaya Ram, Jai Jai Ram.